Hello, everyone. Welcome to A Goodnight for a Murder, a Victorian true crime podcast. This is a Goodnight Snack episode available exclusively for my housekeeper and butler tier patrons. Similar to the regular episode and bonus content earlier this month, where I covered a handful of Victorian Christmas true crime stories in one episode, this is also going to be a compilation episode. Since Victorians love telling ghost stories at Christmas, in this episode, I'm going to cover 6 of the most haunted Victorian houses. We'll be visiting 3 houses in the US and 3 in the UK. Let's get started. A Goodnight for a Murder is a true crime podcast that does cover stories including death, violence, sexual assault, and other adult themes. Please take care while listening. We're going to start out with the Sylvester K. Pierce House, or the S.K. Pierce Mansion in Gardner, Massachusetts. Sylvester Pierce was the owner of the profitable furniture business S.K. Pierce & Sons Furniture Company. Pierce bought his own factory in Gardner at the age of 25, where his success eventually earned Gardner the nickname of Chair City. In the late 1880s, at the age of 53, he decided to build a mansion nearby the factory as his private residence. From atlasobscura.com. It took 100 men almost 2 years to complete the mansion, which covers 7,000 square feet and over 4 stories. Inside, there are 10 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and 11-foot ceilings with ornate woodwork and marble fireplaces throughout. A tunnel also once existed in the basement that directly connected to Pierce's factory. However, just a few weeks after moving in, tragedy struck when his wife Susan became sick with some sort of bacterial infection and died. After a year-long mourning period, Pierce remarried, this time to a woman 30 years younger than him. Pierce himself passed away in 1888. After his second wife died, Pierce's 3 sons bickered over the ownership of the home and business. Eventually, son Edward Pierce converted the home into a boarding house. As is often the case, the house did not maintain its grandness after this transition, and rumors began to swirl of the house's reputation as a den of drinking, gambling, and sex work. The most disturbing rumors to eke out, though, were that a young sex worker had been strangled to death in one of the bedrooms, a Finnish immigrant had burned to death in another room, and that a young boy had somehow drowned in the basement. Fast forward to the year 2009, when Edwin Gonzalez and Lillian Otero purchased the home unaware of its spotted history. 2 years later, they moved out. The home sat vacant for a while before it was purchased again in 2015 and restored to its original condition with the intention of offering historic tours, which is what it's used for today. The mansion currently offers guided tours and overnight stays with a waiting list of over 3,000 people wishing to spend the night in the infamous S.K. Pierce Mansion. So why is there such a long waiting list to stay in the S.K. Pierce Mansion? Hey everyone, it's Kim, and I wanted to let you know that you're listening to a preview of a Patreon-only series from A Goodnight for a Murder called A Goodnight Snack. Episodes are released once a month and are only available at the housekeeper and butler tier on Patreon. If you like the Victorian Society tips in the regular episodes, you're probably going to like these. In this series, I focus on profiling famous Victorian people, Victorian lifestyle and society rules, and more historical true crime that may not be enough to build an entire episode out of, but works for a quick Victorian true crime fix. Hence the series name, A Goodnight Snack. So if you're enjoying the episode, I'm going to play a little bit more for you right now, but if you want to hear the whole thing and more like it, head over to my website at agoodnightforamurder.com, where you can find the link for my Patreon and join at the housekeeper and butler tier. Now back to the story. So why is there such a long waiting list to stay in the S.K. Pierce Mansion? It's to meet the ghosts, of course. Let's talk about some of the paranormal claims. First, the couple who purchased the mansion in 2009, Edwin Gonzalez and Lillian Otero, abruptly moved out after only living there for 2 years. Shortly after moving in, they began hearing disembodied voices, slamming doors, moving objects, and seeing apparitions. The couple, as well as multiple neighbors, reported seeing a, quote, little yellow-haired boy running back and forth between the home's windows, despite the couple not having any children. Other entities encountered include a shadow figure in the basement and a dark-haired woman with a creepy smile who was accused of attempting to possess Lillian. Their full story became the subject of a 2014 book titled Bones in the Basement: Surviving the S.K. Pierce Haunted Victorian Mansion. This one is still on my to-be-read list, but apparently there were indeed bones in the basement. Guests to the house have experienced much of the same, including phantom voices, chanting, full-body apparitions, moving furniture, screens flying off of windows, slamming doors, footsteps, sudden temperature changes, foul odors, shadow people, and the roar of a lion, which is said to shake the house when it occurs. Paranormal experts relate that the entities in this house are some of the most advanced they have ever encountered, with the ability to physically lay hands on the living, attempting to push them downstairs or even out windows. Some of the entities named have been S.K. Pierce, who they attribute the lion roar to, his first wife Susan, son Edward, as well as the nanny who cared for the Pierce children, Maddie Cornwell. Maddie is credited with being the protector of the home, keeping more sinister spirits in check. The spirit of a boy allegedly drowned in the basement is present, along with the murdered sex worker, her murderer, the Finnish immigrant who died due to fire, a younger girl, as well as some miscellaneous dark entities in the basement. So hold on a second, this might be fun. Let's count up the spirits and we'll see which is actually the most haunted Victorian house that I'm going to cover here tonight. Let's see, so that's 9 and an assortment of dark basement entities. So we'll round up and say that the S.K. Pierce Mansion is haunted by 10 to 12 spirits. Next up is the Whaley House in San Diego, California. We have a bit more colorful history on this one, starting with Thomas Whaley, who was born in 1823 in New York. The 7th out of 10 children, he would eventually take over his father's business, then leave New York for California. In 1853, he would return to New York to marry his wife, Anna Eloise Dolini, and then the couple would travel together back to This has been a Good Night Snack episode from A Good Night for a Murder. To hear the full story and more like it, plus unlock the bonus content that accompanies each regular episode, head on over to my website at agoodnightforamurder.com and sign up for the housekeeper and butler tier on Patreon. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you again soon.